Good morning, all of you. So, as we know that if it comes to here, so in last class we discussed what is ecosystem and what is the examples of ecosystem. Like we can say, pond is an example of an ecosystem, and the lake, river, sea, or ocean, etc. Everything we used to call it as ecosystem. So, if we take ecosystem means what? It is like a self-contained unit of living things and as well as non-living things. So simply, if you want to say the ecosystem, it is the a combination of in a particular area. It is a combination of what, guys? Both living things and as well as non-living things. Is it yes or no? So combination of living things plus non-living things we used to call it as ecosystem. So now we are having various ecosystems. If you take even natural ecosystems and as well as artificial ecosystem, and if you take whatever it is like desert, grassland, forest, crop fields, mountains, this all we used to call it as terrestrial ecosystems, or we used to call it as land-based ecosystems. And as well as if you take ponds, lakes, rivers, and etc., aquariums and all, these all are water-based ecosystems. That is why we used to call it as what, guys? They all are aquatic ecosystems. Is it yes or no? And or else we can say water-based ecosystems. And if we take most of the ecosystems in the nature, they are made by naturally. That is why they all are called as natural ecosystems. And if we take some of them are made by us, that is why we used to call it as man-made ecosystems or artificial ecosystems. So examples of artificial ecosystem, what is this, guys? Anybody? Examples of artificial ecosystems, please. I need examples of artificial ecosystem. Last class I told you. Artificial ecosystem. Examples of artificial ecosystems. If you take
Aquarium.
yes, crop fields, if you take that is, and gardens, parks, these are
Parks.
to say parks, and as well as man-made aquariums, this all we used to say artificial ecosystem. So now this is all we studied in the last class. Now if it comes to here, now today's class we will study what is the components of ecosystem and as well as what is the functioning of an ecosystem and who is the main part of this ecosystem. So that is all the things we will study in our today's class. So now let us comes to here. If you notice it, first one, components of an ecosystem. So as I told you, every ecosystem is made up of two kinds of things. What is that, guys? One is living things and another one is non-living things.
Non-living.
Now, that is only we used to call it as biotic and abiotic components or abiotic components. So now let us discuss in detail. So please all of you keep heading. Components of an ecosystem. See, this chapter is the easiest chapter, but at any cost, we have to get 5 out of 5 in this chapter. That is what. So, line to line, we have to read. We don't know in what way the question will come and how they will ask the question. That is it. So, if we take here, every ecosystem, it is made up of two main components. Understand, everyone? So that is only living things and non-living things. That is what we used to call it as non-living things. We used to call it as biotic or abiotic. Abiotic or abiotic, yeah, abiotic components, and living things we used to call it as biotic components. That is what you need to remember. So now if you take here, abiotic components means we can say simply you can write either non-living things also, and abiotic we used to say or abiotic, or biotic means it is the living things. Do you understand, everyone? Living things. So you can say an ecosystem consists of living environment and the non-living environment. That is what it's like a community. So a non-living environment and the living biological community, both ways to call as ecosystem. So now let us come to one by one we'll study. So first of all, we'll come to the non-living environment, and second one is called as what? Living biological community, and the first one is non-living environment. That is only ways to called as abiotic components of ecosystem. So let us discuss what is the abiotic components of ecosystem and how they are present and etc. etc. So now if you notice it here, we know that abiotic ecosystem means what, guys? It is an ecosystem is a what, guys? It is the a physical environments. Understand, everyone? It is the non-living things. That is what you need to remember. So now can you give the examples? That is what I can say, a physical environment. Physical environment. So that is only ways to called as abiotic components. That is what? A non-living environment, or we can say physical environment or environment. So now physical environment means what? Anybody can say the examples? Physical environment means what, guys? Please tell me which does not have, which is must be part of our life but does not have life. Given examples, if we'll take a soil is the example of abiotic.
Air, water, soil.
Yeah, water is the abiotic system, and air is also abiotic system. So along with that, we can take some inorganic components also. What is that? Anybody can say? Along with that, this we can say inorganic components which is present in our daily life, which is not involving helping for us, but they will help for plants and all. What is that? That is only we can say inorganic components. So air, please respond. Who is that? Which will help to plants along with the inorganic components. That is what was to call, guys. Don't know inorganic components. Carbon dioxide, nitrogen, oxygen. You can take this all the substances, phosphorus, sulfur, sodium, like minerals, guys, potassium, and even for us it will help, correct? So many minerals it will help her, calcium, and everything. If you take this and etc. other elements, everything is to called as inorganic substances. So these are all the physical factors, including the climatic factors also. For example, if it comes to here, you are present, if you take our Tamil Nadu, Pudukkottai, it is very, most of the days it is hot region. That is also called as what? Abiotic component only. If you go to North India, for example, Jammu Kashmir, most of the days it is what? Frigid state of water. Even if you go to Ooty in Tamil Nadu, most of the days it is very cool and raining stays. So that is why we can say a physical factors, or we can say like climate factors, that is also like light, temperature, pressure, and humidity. They are also considered as a abiotic ecosystem, understanding components of the ecosystem. So that is what we used to call them as a physical factors, or also we can call it as what are we? Climatic factors. Understand? So that is what. So climatic factors means what? Factors like we can take, suppose how much light is present, how much temperature, even raining also. Raining, what we used to call water, that is why we are not talking. So temperature, pressure, and as well as the amount of water present in that in atmosphere, that is only we used to call as what, guys? Humidity. So these are everything we used to call as abiotic components of ecosystem. Understand, everyone? So these all the things, if we'll take a physical environment like soil, water, air, and as well as inorganic components like carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, all the things, and as well as the physical factors are climate factors like you can take light, temperature, and pressure and humidity. Everything we used to call as What we used to call, guys? Everything we used to call as abiotic components of the.
Abiotic components of ecosystem.
Now, this is all about the abiotic or abiotic ecosystem, components of the ecosystem. So now coming to the second type of components of ecosystem, that is only we used to call as what, guys? Biotic components of an ecosystem. So now let us understand. Biotic means you already know that. What is the, guys? Biotic means living things or non-living things.
Living things.
Living things or non-living things. So biotic means the immediately which you need to remember is living organism. So there are abiotic means non-living and biotic means living. So now let us understand the biotic components of an ecosystem if we'll take, or the living components of the ecosystem. It is the main thing. It is the community of organisms, or we can say living biological community. Do you understand, everybody? What is this? Living biological community. So that is only we used to call as biotic components of the ecosystem. So what is the living biological community? Anybody can say examples, like what it is, like plants, animals, including the microorganisms, everything. So this all, if we'll take here, if all these plants and animals, which is made up of many different interdependent populations, understand? So in this biotic community, or we can say a living biological community of the ecosystem, it mainly contains three types of organisms. How many types of organisms, guys? How many types of organisms? Three types of organisms. Do you understand, everybody? So that is only, by this time you might be understand. So biotic components of the ecosystem, we can be classifying into three types. That is only first one, producers. Understand? So producer organism. So or else we can say it is the autotrophs. Understand, everybody? So that is what I'm saying. So in a biotic community or living community, every animals, plants and animals made up of many different interdependent populations. That is what, like, characteristics. That is what, if it comes to here, the first one, the three types of organisms we can find in these plants and animals in biotic components. That is what we used to call as producer organisms, or we can say what, guys? Autotrophs. So now you tell me, what do you have knowledge about the producer organisms or autotrophs? Anybody? Please respond.
So plants.
Yes, Krutika. So plants we used to call as producer organisms, or we can say autotrophs. Why it is? Anybody? Because they will synthesize their own food. So that is why we can say all the green plants are producers. So whatever the organism which is having a green color leaves, understanding? So that is why they are all called as, we can say, producers, or we can say autotrophs. So you can write which synthesize their own food. Which synthesize their own food, so that we can say all the green plants. All the green plants are producers. So now this is what. Now, what is the second one, guys? So those who are eating the producers, that is what we used to call as consumers. Understanding? So consumer organism. So that is what we used to say. So consumer organisms is only we used to call as heterotrophs. Do you understand, everyone? So heterotrophs, and after the heterotrophs, one more organisms will come. What is that? What is that? You might be heard it. Autotrophs, heterotrophs, and the next one is what? That is only we used to call as. So see, types of heterotrophs, again, two things. That is what we can say, like producers, and next consumers will be three types. What is that? Herbivorous, carnivorous, understanding? So but here basically all the things, if it comes to the biotic organisms, so it needs to, food need to produce, it needs to be consumed by consumers, and after that the death of everything, dead and decaying matter will be eaten by somebody. Who is that, guys? Name anybody? What is that called as? Arya, Sutir, Pranav, can you say? The dead and decaying matter, that is what we used to call as eaten by somebody. For them, it is another name. So those who are producing food called as autotrophs. Those who are consuming, we used to call as heterotrophs. Like that, the dead and decaying matter is eaten by somebody. They are called as another kind of trophs there. What is that, anybody? That is only third one. Let us see, we'll study. So the second one is consumer organisms. Also we can call it as heterotrophs. So heterotrophs means what? Which will dependent on others for food. That is what we used to call it as consumers. So if you take all the animals and as well as non-green plants, we used to say examples of consumer organisms. So you can write it, which are dependent on others, which are dependent on others for food. So what is the examples, guys? Kevin? So all the animals are consumers. So that is only we have to note it down. So now, if it comes to the third category, so as we know, biotic components of ecosystem, mainly we can make it into three types of organisms. So first one is what? Autotrophs, over which they can synthesize their own food. Second one is consumer organisms or heterotrophs. And third one is decomposer organism. Do you understand, everybody? What is that, guys? Decomposer organisms. So decomposer organisms also we can call it as what? What is the name of decomposer? That is only we used to call it as saprotrophs. Please kindly remember. So what we used to call saprotrophs. So what do you mean by saprotrophs? Arvind, Bhumika, Varshini, call to absentees, please, and tell them to join. That is, so decomposer organisms means what? Saprotrophs means anybody which consume the dead remains of other organisms. It may be a plant body or maybe an animal body. So which will eat the dead bodies or dead remains of other organisms. That is what we used to call as saprotrophs. Please remember that. So you can write it. So we can write what? Which consume the dead remains of other organisms. That is only we used to call as certain bacteria. So what is the examples? Tell me. Certain bacteria we can take, fungus we can take. Yes or no, guys? So that is what. So bacteria and fungi are decomposers. Clear till here? Any doubt? So one is abiotic components of an ecosystem. Second one is biotic components of ecosystem. So abiotic components also three things we have to remember. One is what, guys? One is like a non-living things, like a physical environment you have to remember. So next one, inorganic components you have to involve. And next one, physical factors or climatic factors. These three will come under abiotic components of the ecosystem. Next one, biotic components of the ecosystem. So again, they will be classified into three types of organisms. One is producers, or else producer organisms. That is only autotrophs. Next one is consumer organisms. That is only heterotrophs. And third one is decomposer organisms. That is what we used to call as saprotrophs. So please write. Completed, guys? Please respond. Till here, any doubt, anybody can ask me. Sanjay, Karthikeyan, that is. So now if you'll understand this, Humira, are you clear? So if you'll understand this, then we are going to study next one. What is that next one? The functioning of an ecosystem. So all of you keep heading. The next concept is the functioning . I don't know, day by day people are becoming very silent. Ray absent is called. A Pranav called to Dina and like others. Girls also one by one just check it and inform them. So now if you'll notice it, the functioning of an ecosystem. See, this is the most one of the important questions. So be very careful. So now if you'll understand here, we will now describe how this ecosystem functions as a self-sufficient or independent unit in nature. So if you'll notice it, guys, so maybe inside the ecosystem, organisms are depend on each other, like consumers and decomposer. But if you take a complete ecosystem, it is not depend on other things because there itself, whatever it is required, everything will be like self-sustaining. It can only can create and it cannot only can be consumed everything. So that is why we can say how this ecosystem functions as a self-sufficient or we can say independent. So if we'll take any kind of ecosystem, it can be creating all the requirement things and it will be making as a independent or we can say self-sufficient unit in the nature. So now let us discuss how it will be becoming self-sustained or self-sufficient or we can say independent. So if we'll take just you can take, we have ecosystem has two kinds of things. What is that, guys? Just now we discussed it. Ecosystem completely classifying into two categories. What is that? Anybody try to speak? Arun, please. So ecosystem, two things are there. One is what? A non-living components, another
Non-living
what? A
living
living
components.
so if you take a non-living components like soil, water, air, which contains also inorganic nutrients, and as well as if you come to the living components, they are only called as what? Producers, consumers, and decomposer organisms. So all the non-living things, understanding. So non-living organisms, we used to say what, guys? Non-living things, we used to say what? It is three things again. So one is a physical environment. Next one is what? Organic, inorganic nutrients. Next one is what? The third one, physical factors. So this all we used to called as non-living organisms. And if we take living organisms or living things, so again three types. What is that? Pranav? One is producers, and the second one is consumers, and third one is what? Third one is called as decomposers. Understand? So this is what we studied. So if we take here, all these components make the ecosystem function, including the physical environment, inorganic nutrients, physical factors or climatic factors, and including producers, consumers, and decomposers, everything they will make the ecosystem. Then how it will be functioning, let us discuss. And it will be function like from the nutrient pool of the earth, if we'll take. So who is the nutrient pool of the earth? Anybody can say? That is what we can say: soil, water, and air. So if you'll take notice it very carefully, that is only we used to say a nutrient pool, because there only the plants will start growing. That is why it is we used to call it as nutrient pool. So nutrient pool means three things will come. What is that? Nutrient pool of the earth. What is that, guys? One is what? Soil. Next one is what? Water. And the third one is called air. So these three are called as nutrient pool of earth. So if we take here, along with that, inorganic nutrients. What is that inorganic nutrient which is required for producers? CO2. Understand? So CO2 and water is absorbed by the producer organisms. That is what? Green plants. So with the help of sunlight or under the presence of sunlight. So which reaction will take place? Elamati? Under the presence of sunlight, which reaction will take place? So by using sunlight energy, green plants, they are the producer organisms, convert the inorganic substances into what, guys? They will convert the inorganic substances like water and carbon dioxide into useful substances. That is what? Components like carbohydrates, which is act as a food. That is what we used to call it as. Understand, everybody? So the producer organisms, with the help of inorganic substances like carbon dioxide and water under the presence of sun energy or sunlight energy. So what is happening, guys? So every producer, who is the producer organism example? Who is the producer organism example? All the speak here. Who is the examples of producer organisms? All the green plants. So they will convert. They will convert water. They will convert inorganic substances, inorganic components. What is the inorganic components, Kevin? That is only ways to say CO2 and water.
Water.
They will be converting into organic components. What is the example of organic component? Organic,
Carbohydrate.
yes, organic components. That is what we used to say carbohydrates. That is only we can say glucose. So they will produce the carbohydrates, which we are acting as a what? Which we are eating as a
Food.
food. That is what you need to remember. So that is why we can say this is how the ecosystem is functioning. So the producers, we can say that they will trap the solar energy and they will provide a basic food or energy for all other life forms in the ecosystem. So that is what producers will use non-living things to make a food for them and as well as others. So when the producers and consumers die, if we'll take, then the decomposer organisms act on their dead bodies to return the various elements back to the nutrient pool. So who is the nutrient pool, guys? Who is the nutrient pool of the earth? That is what? Soil, water, and as well as air. So that is what it will be happening. So like this, an ecosystem involves input of energy and matter which are exchanged between the living and non-living components in a cyclic process. So first of all, what is happening? Everybody, what is the functioning of this one? So first of all, what is happening? Producers are present. So you can make it everything. So producers, so how they are doing raw? Producers, they are making what? They are making the food which is required for the basic thing for all the living organisms. So these producers, how they are making? Under the presence of sunlight, under the presence of sunlight, and what is happening, Ra? With the help of which components, guys? Inorganic components. Inorganic components. That is what we used to call as CO2 plus H2O. So they are producing food. So this food is consumed by all the consumers. Understanding? So now these producers and as well as consumers will die. It has been eaten by what, guys? Once they will dead. So it has been eaten by what? It has been consumed by, it has been eaten by whomra? Please respond. It has been decomposed by whom? Consumed we should not use. It has been decomposed by?
Decomposers.
Yes, decomposed by decomposers, so that again it will be turned into what? Again it will be given to the in form of nutrients. In form of nutrients, it is given back to the nutrient pool. That is only we used to call as what? That is what we used to call as a soil,
Water.
and as air. So like this, the continuous process will be keep on taking place. So we can say, so what is that? Every ecosystem involves input of energy and matter which are exchanged between the living and non-living components of a cyclic process. So that is what it is used to happening. It will start with the nutrient pool of the earth and from again ends with the nutrient pool only. That is what? Soil, water, and air. So that is what you need to understand. Understand, Akshaya, Bhumika, everybody? So that is only we used to call it as functioning of an ecosystem. Understand, Arvind? Sanjay? So we can say, at last, what we can say, the ecosystem involves the input of energy. Who is giving input of energy? Karthikeyan, Krutika, and every ecosystem we can say. So it is having input of energy. Who is giving input of energy? Please respond. An ecosystem involves input of energy that is from the producers, that is only plants, green plants. So we can say, so it is input of energy and it is usual as matter which are exchanged, between living and non-living things, between living and non-living components. Components in a cyclic process. That is only principle or functioning of an ecosystem. Please write it. Have you understand everybody? Please respond, everyone. So that is the cyclic thing you have to remember. Again, what is happening? Again, it will be producers back into the pool. So that is only producers will be keep on producing. So it will be cyclic process. You can draw like this. Okay, Arvind, Arya. So it will be
Yes, sir.
like this.
Yes, sir.
First, last one, pool of nutrients pool of the earth. That is what? Again, from that producers to food to consumers and producers will die, and the dead decomposed by the decomposers, and again it will form of nutrients. That is what it is given to the nutrient pool. That is what? Soil, water, and air. So this is what it will be continuously like a, what it is, a cyclic process. Is it okay, guys? Everybody? That is. So make it everyone. Okay. Completed? This is what you need to remember it. Any doubt? Anybody till here? Harini? Krutika? That is. So meeting is going to end. Please again join back. That is. So now let us comes to here. Then next we are going to study a living things. So living things we have made it into three things. What is that, guys? Anybody can tell me? So according to the manner in which they obtain food, all the living environment understanding. So we can make it into three groups. What is that? Based upon the thing how they are getting the food. That is what we used to say. Producers. The next one is
Users,
what?
consumers, and decompose.
And decomposers.
We can say decomposers. Understand? So how we are classifying these things? How we are making these categories? Anybody? Based upon which they obtain their food from the environment. Understanding? So according to the manner how they are obtaining, you understanding? Either they are producing or they are eating the